Well, what's going on, world? It's your boy, James, not Freebie. And yeah, I don't know, wild. Walking in a conversational, non-video game. Kind of weird. But what I wanted to do here is start posting select college football reviews from the previous weeks. And then I have a long-term project that I'm going to work on. Basically, it's called Fourth and What If, a college football what if, or a football what if podcast. In the meantime, like I said, I'll be doing the reviews, and I got reviews already written up, chosen, selected, almost like they were selected, drafted perfectly to be reviewed. Basically, these games I've chosen to review since week 0 of college football. I'll be focusing pretty much primarily on college football because as much as I am football brain rotted, at the same time, the realistic feasibility of me going Thursday through Mondays and potentially Tuesdays as the season goes by, it was enough for week 1, official week 1, not week 0 of college football, with it being Thursday through Monday. With there being games every single day, it kind of was a little bit of a mental strain. I'm kind of glad we're back on the Fridays and Saturdays, and maybe even Thursdays. Regardless, week 0 was a very fun week. Usually week 0 in college football is not as entertaining as it ended up being. We started out in Dublin, Ireland with number 22 ranked Iowa State beating number 17 ranked Kansas State. It was a thrilling finish down to the very end. It was one of those games where it very much started out very sloppy. In Dublin, it was a rainy affair. I heard on the cast, and I have no reason to doubt this, is the UK, 150 days of 365 days are rainy. And it really felt like that. But it also felt like a good display of what college football is and really what could be brought upon to international audiences, especially from a college football perspective, which has gotten out of the country a fair few times, but I don't think that there was ever quite a display to open up a season that quite had the effect. I mean, both Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson, in their own respects, were doing business, but it really started to. Week 0, week 1 could do this for you. It could really start to set in some reasonable or unreasonable expectations. And I think for Iowa State and Kansas State, especially going through the Big 12 and the gauntlet that could be sometimes, I think that their expectations are pretty reasonable, both of them. They're both going to score. They're both going to play defense. And I think Iowa has really taken their time to really show that, they're ready to run the ball. Farmageddon really gave us something to chew on. Gave us the fat and the meat of what we wanted to see. I think the biggest thing is like closing out these games. We got to learn a whole bunch from both Kansas State and Iowa State about how they'll handle those last couple moments. On the other hand, I did follow multiple games the opening weekend, and I think the second game, and I think the game that could have, I'm going to put it like this, could have really put some people off. I mean, honestly, these two games are what I would like to call the realistic disparity between college football, good games and bad games. This game between Fresno State and Kansas in week 0 it felt fun for the total of most of the first quarter, but most like every week 1 FCS versus FBS opponent, pretty much. It was a thumping. It was a brutalizing, and it's strange because nobody would sit here and convince themselves that Kansas is on the same tier level as Fresno State. I think that the perception is maybe they're a lot closer because Kansas doesn't consistently go out and show that they are the Big 12 team that they are, but they got the resources and the money to really show that. My player of the game and really of week 0 would be Jalen Daniels. That man went 18 for 20, 176 and 3 tutties, as the kids say. On the opposite side, you had an E.J. Warner who was struggling the entire game. Fresno State were really trying to it felt like they were trying to pick themselves up early. Jalen Daniels just would not let them have it on the ground. 8 attempts for 47 yards. And their receivers, Kansas receivers were doing very, very, very good. As I said, this game unfortunately had to be played on week 0 because, being one of the 3 meaningful FBS football games, the score, result, energy felt like a week 4 get ready for conference play for Kansas rather than what the result of the game was. My little blurb on it. And it really did feel that way because it was out of hand, out of pocket pretty much from the get-go. I really felt like Kansas's offensive attack, the way that they spread out the ball, the way that they got creative, is something that's really been a marquee over the last couple years for them. But it's especially shown that they could really make something happen. And I think a lot of the teams in the Big 12 should start looking behind their shoulders proverbially, because at the end of the day, Kansas is not a slouch. And I still feel, even that we're rolling up on week 2, that Kansas could still continue to do that. I really feel like this could be one of those 8, 9, potentially 10 win until proven otherwise by Kansas. On Fresno State side, they just got to really survive the slug fight that the Mountain West always is. And especially as the landscape shifts and there's going to be teams going into the Pac-12, leaving the Mountain West. So I guess for this last year, Fresno State just really got to hold in tough and hope that they don't lose their ass. I really think that they'll level back out. And I didn't really pay attention to it, but they're week 2. No. Got to turn around. Okay. All right. Stanford and Hawaii was a nightcapper, and I love some action. I love it. I love some West Coast action. These West Coast games are literally one of the biggest saviors. They by the time I get off, I could pop one of those on and watch pretty much the entire game, start to finish. If I feel like staying up until 1:30 in the morning, but in this case, it was a thrilling week 0 nightcapper between Stanford and Hawaii, with Hawaii pulling out a field goal, and winning it. Let me put it like this: this game had nothing to do with Hawaii. This was literally Hawaii taking advantage of a storyline that had to be written. Frank Reich's storyline had to be written for college football, that he was terrible with the play clock. I mean, was there anything that was wrong with that statement? The man who was fired from Carolina after not being there for an entire year, some people, it's incompetence of the owner. While it may be a little bit of that, David Tepper is not a very smart guy at owning a football team. I would say that the clock management is a real thing, and that Frank Reich was definitely on that, especially when he got to Carolina, was definitely having a little bit, I wouldn't say having too much fun, but back to the point at hand. My favorite game, and honestly, whenever you heard the audio cast for the game, Micah Alejado, 5'10", 180 odd pounds. This kid is a dual threat machine. 27 for 29, 210, 2 touchdowns. And even on the ground, 10 attempts for 36 yards. He at least tried. The thing I love about Hawaii is their receiver depth. Something that you'll hear about a lot. The biggest advantage is that, I'll give him this, Timmy Chang has been doing not the greatest of jobs there. There's been better jobs in the past done in Hawaii. But reasonably, that this Stanford win will be going down as his marquee best win in his entire time there recently. And I really don't want to take away from the fact that Timmy Chang really took advantage of the situation given to him, because there's not a lot of times, especially given the fact that the recruiting level, even with NIL, is going to be different in Hawaii. I don't know how many of their boosters want to dole out millions when they're already out on vacation out there. But regardless, it was a fun game, a fun ending to that. Really, like I said, I mentioned it's unfortunate that this is not nepotism, but it feels like the dirtiest version of non-nepotism that felt so close to nepotism. And it really, all right. So week 1 was a full slate. The official week 1 of college football, which was last week, every single day from Thursday till Monday, had at least one game. But it wasn't just one. I wanted to make sure whatever games I followed had some kind of fun to them. Part of my thing is maybe by the time the end of the next episode, or even the episode after that, I'll have all my over, under, or my total scores, home versus away, over, under, how many the home has scored against the away. I want to try and keep that as small as possible, I guess, to have the closest games possible, even if they just suck. But week 1 started off on Thursday with probably what I would call the biggest come down and the biggest surprise in all of college football. What am I saying? Group of 5 quarterback Byram Brown, and the USF Bulls, University of South Florida Bulls, let Boise State come into Raymond James Stadium, their home stadium, so they could obliterate them 34-7. And it felt like a lot like the kid repeatedly getting bullied for his lunch money kind of energy. And wow, when you lose a top 10 draft pick, how the mighty Goliath fell. The group of 5 playoff contender from last year, Boise State, looked gassed. They looked like they didn't have anything more than what they came out with, which is surprising and strange. It was just a very odd vibe the entire game. I remember listening on last Thursday and sitting here thinking, man, this game could have gone so well if only Boise State decided to show up with an offensive game plan that didn't feel like they were trying to figure it out from last year, which some argue inevitably would have happened. I argue you have an entire off season. You had at least a back part of last season to try and start thinking of creative ways to run your offense without having a top 10 NFL draft pick running the football, play in and play out. Oh. Sorry about that. But it also comes down to the defense. The defensive play calling the entire game was, Lord, Boise's going to have a long season. They've already gotten themselves bounced out of playoff contention for the G5 unless something major really happens. And as of this moment, South Florida, and I'm going to put it like this, there are I've been reading up on this. There's been a good handful of giving giving Byram Brown the opportunity to guide USF to that place where Boise State was last year, entering the playoffs. Byram Brown, and there are a couple G5 quarterbacks that also are very top level in the way that they process the games and the way that they could guide their team to greater things. And I think this is going to be a really fun season for the G5 quarterbacks. The next game that I watched in borderline waterboarding, actually, I'm going to end that right there. And I'm going to pick up the rest of week 1 and then come back and finish this recording.